You need to build for where you're going, not where you are. I tell my clients this all the time. Let's have vision and see where we want to go instead of making knee-jerk reactions, because it's band-aids upon band-aids upon band-aids, and you look like a mummy. It's a mess. So let's build for where we're going and set this up so that it is sustainable, so that it is profitable, and so that it is trustworthy, because you can use that in your marketing, and people know BS. They definitely know BS. So if you say my privacy is important to you, and then you sold their data to 700 partners, they're not going to believe you.
Welcome to What Gets Measured, a NinjaCat podcast about marketing performance management, metrics, and effectiveness. Because what gets measured gets managed. I'm your host, Jake Sanders.
Heidi Saas is a data privacy and technology attorney focused on consumer rights and ethical AI. Since getting her JD from Suffolk University Law, Heidi has been advising businesses working in a wide variety of industries on data privacy, consumer protection, and ethical AI strategies. When she's not firing off hot legal takes on LinkedIn, Heidi is helping her clients make sense of the data landscape, and she's here to do the same for us. Heidi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. My name's Heidi Saas. These are my personal opinions, not legal advice.
Oh, so you know when there's a disclaimer up front, we're in the legal forest.
Now I can let it all hang out and tell you what I really think.
Right. I also have a disclaimer. These are my personal opinions. And no, thank you so much. I just love following you on LinkedIn, and just you're so tenacious with the way you bring your sense and expertise to the game and ask really good questions. You know, I mean, you've gotten me thinking, and I'm so happy you're here. But I wanted to kind of translate all of that wonderful stuff and give it to the marketing audience. Let's just start with data privacy, because we hear about it. Some people see it as a big old barrier and like, oh, why? And some people, if they think about their own data, might be like, maybe that's important to pay attention to as marketers. So like, in the ad tech industry, marketing, can you explain why data privacy matters and how we should be thinking about it?
That's a great question. And a lot of people in marketing follow me out of fear. And I think that, fear is born from, a lack of knowledge. And if you learn a little bit more about someone, you'll find that we have more in common than we have that separates us, which I think is an especially important message today.
Right.
Right. So I am always excited to talk to people that are in marketing, and I work with research groups that do research on the marketing and ad tech ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I do have experience in getting down to the log level and find out what's happening really with the ad campaign and those sorts of things, just to shine a light on some of these problems that we see. Because we are looking at the problems because it is about dignity. All of these systems were built to process human data, but without any respect for human dignity, because it was just a business asset. We collected it, we'll process it, we'll sell it and do whatever we want with it because it's our assets. And that worked for a long time until consumers, regulators, everybody else found out how the data flows and where the money goes. And they're not excited about it. And so it's taken the position of privacy to say we have rights to this data, and for privacy's purposes, which also includes safety in a lot of areas. But we're moved forward to bring knowledge to the market to say here is the result of what you're doing, because you're just picking your lookalikes and firing off your ad campaigns, and everything's great. Your brands think that you're getting conversions, but nobody can prove it. It's all magic and everybody's happy. So here come the people who know how to do research. And, I work in connecting the culpability of the law to the code causing the harm. So that's where I come from. My background is in consumer protection. So I can't stop. I just can't stop with it. It's just how I'm wired. So, when I'm approaching one of these situations, I want to know what's in the tech stack and how are the data flows going? Where are they going? Also, what was the perception of the buyer of this process? The brands, the marketing companies, when they were putting forward these campaigns, what were their expectations of what was going to happen and what would be their return on that? Because they're not getting that information in most cases. They're just getting, vanity numbers that make them feel like their money has been well spent. And everybody just keeps, living the high life on this fallacy until the regulators came in. So things started to change for marketing, and they started to hear what we had to say when the regulators stepped in, and it started causing hot shame and lots of cash.
Mhm.
So the regulators came in, the plaintiffs bar figured out there's gold in the data hills. And then there was a lot of pressure to say, you've got to do these things differently. But all of these ecosystems were built this way. So
Mhm.
we've got a lot of retrofit building to do. People say privacy by design. I say that's bull, because few people get in on the ground level to actually design a tool from the beginning all the way to a launch. So it's more privacy by retrofit. And that's the uncomfortable spot we're in now, is that people are aware they need to be concerned about privacy, and there's some things that they need to do. And it seems like more compliance work, and people liken it to doing taxes. But instead, if you look at it as an opportunity, you've driven this car as long as you can, but this car is a jalopy. You need to get a better, more reliable car to take you into the next phase of where you want to be in the digital economy. So that's kind of how I'm getting people to understand that it is an opportunity for you to build things that are better, for you to open new revenue streams you didn't know existed before, and actually have the data behind it to prove what is happening in the data flows. So you don't have to just rely on vanity metrics and not know what's going on in its personal relationships and like, oh, that guy wouldn't screw me. Oh, yes, they would. So, yes, exactly. Facts are facts. And this is an opportunity to build something better and get some of those facts and bring the truth back to it. Because consumers are mad at you, and they're starting to take it out on brands. And so nobody wants that, right?
No, nobody wants that. Well, one of the things, Heidi, I've kind of alighted on in this area is we have a business hat that we put
Mhm.
on, and then we take it off, and we're a person, and like when you're a marketer, you're doing the marketing thing. So you're doing you're data driven, and then when you take off your marketing hat, you are in the consumer marketplace and you're dealing with maybe things that you put forward. I mean, how do you get people to break their sense of their business responsibilities with their personal, downstream implications of these business choices?
The best example that I saw of this is when one of the research reports came out last summer saying that Google and YouTube are definitely collecting children's data and using it for targeted advertising. And it was a simple research methodology, and we put out the methodology in the report and all of that. The team that had published the report and had worked on it, I was amplifying the work, and people were posting comments that said, I work in this industry. I had no idea that this is going on. And I sat with my kid in their iPad for a little while, and I saw a Tinder ad while they were watching like Jesus Loves Me, cartoons or something.
Right, right.
So yes, that was the first time marketers had to eat their own dog food. And it was in the face of their children looking at them. And I think that was a moment of inflection for at least those people, because they're like, wow, I go to work and I do this job all the time, and I don't think that I'm doing anything that would hurt someone. But then they're looking in the small, innocent face of their children, and they're wondering, why are you selling my data?
It just seems like, well, the terms and conditions have handled it. It's a foregone conclusion. Like it's all good. Like you accepted these things. You knew this was how we were rolling. Like, what's your problem here? Like
Mhm.
what do you say to those people that are like, hey, y'all knew the party you were getting into. Don't be sad that you just don't like the appetizers.
I would like them to tell me what the terms and conditions are in their agreement, because I actually read them, I write them, and I pursue them on behalf of others. So if you know what's in your terms and conditions and you want to argue with me that people should know, I'm going to ask you first, why don't you tell me what's in it? And if they do, that's fantastic. But pretty much, I'm going to catch them flat footed every time.
Because I read somewhere, it's like if you did look and closely review all the terms and conditions that you auto say cool for all your apps, it would take you like 75 years to like read all that stuff. And they know we're not going to do it. But Heidi's out here. Heidi is aware of these things. And recently I saw a webinar with her, and she was talking to an international consortium of people focused on the legal ramifications of AI, what different people in Beijing, Europe, South America are doing. So she has this sense, and I wanted to kind of get you to kind of unpack the differences in between the privacy approaches, that data privacy approaches in like the GDPR and the CCPA. Like Europe is handling it one way, and America is just handling it in another. Can you kind of explain it?
Yeah, we're not really handling it yet here. So that's exactly, yeah. So in the EU, they use a risk-based approach. And so, for example, the EU's AI Act, it really should just be called the AI Act because there's extraterritorial reach. So if you are creating a model here, but you're reaching customers in the EU, the 27 member nations or the UK, then this law applies to you. So that, I mean, that's kind of an important piece of legislation that's taking effect, but it's risk-based. High risk tools like sentiment analysis. Like you shouldn't be building tools to find out if you think people are bored because that's predictive analytics do not work when it comes to humans and emotions and certain human behaviors, right? So I mean that's kind of a fundamental flaw in how the models are built. Also the training data. If the training data is flawed, your model is going to be flawed. Another problem is that people want to integrate these models into their things, but they lack control over the foundational model. And so there can be drift, and they're not monitoring for that. They're not independently testing it because they don't have access to the model weights because Sam Altman has them under his pillow. I don't know where he keeps that stuff, but he's not sharing it. OpenAI with the closed model. So
Right,
it's
right.
yeah, exactly. So in the US, it's kind of we're making money here, and that's what we're doing, and that's all we're doing for right now. And we know that some of these things are important, and a lot of vanity laws have been passed in the states for privacy legislation. I call them vanity laws because they don't quite address the issues that we have with privacy. We wanted a law to be passed to handle because the lobbyists came in and pretty much said, why don't you codify what we're already doing? And so then everything will be cool. And we can say we got a privacy law passed and everybody's excited. California was different. California was a ballot measure. It was angry people that said, what's happening to my data? I think this is trash.
Right.
And so they passed this ballot initiative twice. And created a whole, data cop agency, and they're starting to move forward with enforcement and doing sweeps. Side note on that, sometimes just a credible threat of enforcement is enough to get people to do the right thing. In this case, they're a new agency, and so they've made good on some of those threats as well. So, the French Data Protection Authority, the CNIL, however you want to pronounce that, no, whatever. They are also leading the charge on this and have been for a couple of years. If the French are looking at your data, you're in trouble. Like bottom line, you're in trouble because they're not messing around. And so that's kind of one approach that they have as well. In the U.S., we're still waiting to find out what we're going to do because I don't think it's going to be a federal privacy law. I wasn't sure that we were going to get one. And one of the reasons is Congress. Congress uses the same ad tech ecosystem to raise campaign dollars. You may have seen that Harris raised $1 billion
Right,
in 90
yeah.
days.
Right.
Yeah, this is how she did that. This is using our data this way is how that happens. So if we're going to fix the problems that we have, the misuse of our personal data, it is going to take an act of Congress, and they're going to have to work out how do we still do what we do, but still stop the harm that people are complaining about. That's why you still have, hearings in Congress with people holding pictures of their dead kids complaining and begging Congress to do something. And they're still not doing it. It's because they don't know how without cutting their legs off at the knees in terms of keeping their own jobs.
My gosh. Well, and so that seems like a significant barrier, like the money and influence, kind of changing the way we approach these regulations. But it made me think, like you say, in France, don't mess around. Like you got that data, and the French people are looking at you. Oh boy. Now, I wonder if you have a line on how innovation, like marketing, like creativity, like the action of advertising, do they feel spurned or inspired in France by this approach to privacy? Like, the French people are serious about data. They got like laws and stuff. Do they feel like that's hampering their ability to be good marketers? Or like, some of the blowback for America would be like, don't bring those regulations because it's going to be harder to think.
Don't
And
tread on me, man. Yeah,
but
yeah,
then I'm
yeah.
wondering, like, they are being not tread upon, but with the boot of the law, in France, are they like, damn it, I wish we didn't have these privacy restrictions because I can't do my advertising job. Do you feel that? Like, not only in France, but EU?
So, well, I have previously worked with clients in France, and it very much depends on your industry. Because if you're in a highly regulated industry, you're used to having to deal with these things, banking, and those sorts of things. Yeah, you're used to having to deal with an extra layer of compliance as well. But if you're in fashion, and all of
Mm,
a sudden, yeah, all of a sudden you are working in fashion and you want to expand your brand, that is where they're feeling the pinch because they have access to the data and they want to use the data, but they also understand, as you said, the boot of the law. So it's going to kick you. And I didn't really have to do much to convince them that their data regulator was going to do something about it because they were in France. Like they had seen the news, they understood, like they got that reputation, they got that street cred out
right,
there, right?
right,
Not all of the data regulators have that kind of street cred.
right.
So exactly. So and in Germany, I think there are 16 different DPAs just for the one country. So I mean, and they don't all agree on everything as well. So I mean, it's a turning into a clusterfuck when it comes to regulation because they're not quite getting what the law says and then what the enforcement looks like enforcing the law. There's a disconnect between the two.
Right.
So they're still trying to work that out. I think in the US, we've gotten a little bit better about this approach with our regulators because we have technologists. And I think that made the difference. Once we had technology people and lawyers that knew how to talk to each other to work on these projects, that's when you started to see these things rolling out. But it wasn't until you brought in the people that knew how these systems work and the people that knew the law and put them together, that's when you started to see cases come out and progress, at least on a guidance kind of level and enforcement on a one by one, case by case kind of basis, not across the board. The states are trying to do some things across the board. Colorado has an AI Act.
Right.
Minnesota has got a provision that you have a right against profiling in their privacy law. So I anticipate the remaining 30 states that are going to be, negotiating their privacy laws are going to be looking because some are redoing some of it, like Connecticut, they got it passed and now they want to buffer it and they want to add a little bit more to it. So the rest of the states that are looking at passing a privacy law, I anticipate they're going to include more and more AI processing when they do that. As part of their privacy laws, instead of just doing a separate AI law and a separate privacy law. Legislation's hard. If you can get that vehicle passed, yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like put everything you can in it and try to get that thing passed because as soon as you get a law passed, then you have to start defending it in the court. Because
Right.
the law is the law until you want to break it, and then you go to court and you do what you want to, crumble the pieces of the law back down into something you can manage. And they
Right.
know this. That's the strategy going in. It's if
Mm,
we write the phrase this way, it leaves enough ambiguity for us to challenge it in court later. Of course, the lobbyists aren't saying this to you. They're
right.
saying this is bad for small business and this will harm innovation because I don't think they have any other things in their playbook than those. So yeah, that's all we hear from them, right?
Right. Well, but what you said was that if you actually approach this ahead of time and not wait to feel the boot kick your butt, if you handle this, you would maybe open new revenue streams. You would actually open up new understanding. You would
Some
actually
businesses
maybe.
are.
I mean, you couldn't even imagine the wonderful things, but they're just obsessed with the process, and I think that's a lot of the middlemen in the world who are in between the business and the consumer. Well, you have a giant cocktail party of people that are like taking little pieces off of your marketing campaign here and there, and some of them are standing for the right things. Some of them are letting some of the wrong things slide. We're talking about like the IAB, the advertising industry, the heads. You were recently in like a $1 trillion meeting with members of the IAB and the NAI talking about the future of cookies and alternatives. Like, can you give me a synopsis of the conversation and like what was that like? Just kind of break that down for me.
Yeah, it was at a privacy conference in DC. So I live outside of DC, and I like to show up and see people in person, or just threaten to show up and scare them. But I went to this conference to see some people and learn some new things. And I saw this talk, and I was like, gosh, I really need to make it over to that talk to see what kind of things they have to say.
Mhm.
So I got there, and there were fewer than 50 people in the room. It's a small little conference room. There are three people sitting at the panel. There was someone from the NAI, someone from the IAB, and their lawyer right in between them. For some reason, that kid was sweating buckets before we even started. So I don't know what was going on with that, but it was a little awkward. And in the room, there were members of the FTC. There were people from various think tanks and advocacy groups. There were people that were lobbyists. There were people that work in marketing. There were all of their lawyers were definitely in there, and me. And so when they started, they were like, okay, we are going to level set you on some things. And that's the first clue, when somebody's about to start talking right out of their ass. So they wanted to level set us on a couple of things and tell us basically what their opinion is of all of the regulatory heat and all of the litigation landscape, the
Right.
regulatory landscape, the political landscape, how everybody out there was pushing for all of these things. And it was interesting, but we're coming up with these new frameworks and things like that for our members. And don't you worry, we've got good stuff coming. And it was almost as if they had not stepped outside their bubble to see what the real world looks like. And if you add up the collective revenue by all of the members represented by these three people sitting in there, it's all of big tech. It's trillions of dollars sitting there. And so I let them, run their tails and whatever. And so a couple of advocates gave them a hard time, which was great to see. It's always fun. And I waited to the end and I said, listen, a couple of things here. Number one, contracts don't stop data flows. Okay. Number two, because they were complaining loudly about consumer protection laws in New York with this new cookie banner using consumer protection laws. They don't even have a privacy law. They use consumer protection, and now they're telling us what to do with their cookie banners. And I just wanted to remind them every state has a UDAP. Every state has a UDAP. Unfair and Deceptive Acts and Practices. The FTC was the first one. These are mini FTC acts, and every state has one. Some are stronger than others, but they're everywhere based on consumer protection with private rights of action in a lot of cases. And they're already on the books. So you can expect to see more of that. I promise you. Now, my question was about one of the slides. And I said, listen, we've seen cases come from the FTC, and the settlements clearly say sensitive data is a concern, and this is what sensitive data is. But then Levine went so far as to say browsing history is sensitive data. And I said, with that in mind, your slides say we collect non-personal data like your location and your browsing history and pages visited. And I said, are you not listening to what the whole world is saying about this? How do you square that?
Mm.
And so my brother in the middle, who's also a lawyer that was sweating buckets, at this point was drenched and started to stumble over himself and was like, "Brr, brr, brr, brr." Basically his answer was, those are just statements. It's not binding, and we're treating it like dicta. And I was like, oh, you're treating it like dicta. Okay. And yeah, you could hear the rest of the room like, yeah. So, right. And they wrapped up the meeting shortly after that and probably went to go find out who the hell is that woman. But yeah, exactly. So, that's what they had to say. Basically,
Yeah.
all of the progress that has been made in the industry for privacy to push back and try to find a middle way for everybody to operate. Because a lot of these things, they're not too hard to integrate. But they basically see that as just a rough patch, and they're moving on, and they were celebrating their 25 years. They've been doing this 25 years. They're celebrating how long they've been around. and the extolling the virtues of self-regulation. I was like, you've had 25 years to do this. You have made a hot mess. Self-regulation does not work.
So somebody was saying it's the Wild West. You know, it really is the Wild West. And then I was like, huh, you know, whatever. Insert marketing trend here. It's the Wild West. You know, and I was like, it has been the Wild West for 20 years. When is it? How was the West won again? I'm just like, I'm kind of wondering, like, it's still
The
wild.
gunslingers. That's a great point. The gunslingers are the ones that came in to finish the deal. Yeah, and so that is what's happening now. So regardless of who is in the administration, red, blue, purple, I don't care. They all hate data brokers. And so exactly, right? They're coming for you. Every day they're coming for you, and in ways you haven't even thought of yet, because you're not paying attention to the ways they've already come for you. So if you're not, yeah, high five. If you're not nervous now, you should be. So yes, exactly. You better beef up on your certification so you can go work in cybersecurity instead of in marketing if you are worried about your future in this field, because things have to change. We're there at that point where things have to change. And so I'm done with listening to self-regulatory bodies, no matter how altruistic they sound, or no matter how friendly they are, or that they say the right things. When it comes down to push and shove, they're still lobbying to cut off all of the rights that we're working to have honored. So yes, you can still make money and do this. And as far as a cookieless future, just doing your own ID number and calling it something other than a cookie does not make it a cookieless alternative. You're still tracking people. So Trade Desk, I'm looking at you, specifically Trade Desk, looking at you. They're mad because they're not Google. They so badly want to be Google that they're doing everything they can to bring Google down so they can take their place. But they're saying, we're the good guys. Do you remember what Google's first tagline was?
I think it was don't be evil.
Yeah, exactly. And so, hello, new trade, Trade Desk talking to you. You need a new playbook here. They're now starting to integrate AI into their CTV programs, because that's the new holy grail where everything's cool, because nobody's figured out how to work privacy and consent management tools into the damn TVs. And so automatic content recognition is supposed to be everything that's going to be the gravy train for the future. And I'm killing that thing as fast as I can. Turn it off. And if browsing history is sensitive, how about my browsing on my TV versus the browsing on my computer? Exactly. That is one little bit of language in a regulation that will kill this entire industry. Billions of dollars in this industry waiting on the language of one word. Exactly. One definition will kill it all.
But what's so awesome is like, well, she's got an axe to grind, and you're like, you know what? I kind of wonder if you made up early point is like, you're tracking efficiency metrics, these vanity metrics that they give us. They only tell you how the machine is working. They don't tell you if your revenue and profit is going high. You need to be thinking about effectiveness. And then if we just had that, split those things up, we could get people to see why this is an important thing to focus in on, because you make more consistent, clean, honest money that lasts longer. You can get faster, quicker, but is that a lasting thing? You have to really think about effectiveness.
That's the thing. It's not sustainable, and I don't necessarily have I hate data brokers, but that doesn't mean I hate all marketing people. I see a need for marketing, but there's too much marketing. There's malvertising, there's spam, there's, spyware. There are all kinds of bad things that are on the ecosystem. There's too much of it. There needs to be less of it. It needs to be cleaner. It needs to be verified. When I work with companies, I go through their tech stack, and sometimes it's tool by tool, and I rip these tools apart. Well, this one's leaky, replace it with this, or this one has shit for analytics, you need to replace it with this. And that's how I go through to rebuild people's tech stacks. But I've got to have an engineering team that understands what I'm talking about. Oftentimes, the privacy people, the lawyers, the product managers, they're all looking at me when I'm asking questions like I have 3 heads. They're like, what is she talking about? And I said, you know what? Can you set up a call with me and your engineering team? And as soon as I'm on the call with the engineers, we're done in a half an hour. They knew exactly what I was talking about. They knew exactly what they needed to do, and we got it done. The problem is that, all of the other people who were ticking the boxes saying, we did the privacy impact assessment, they don't know their ass from their elbow. They may have cut and pasted this from some other project that they worked on right into this company. And then this company has a tech stack that does one thing and then public disclosures that do another. That is unfair and deceptive on its face. And if you get caught, you will get in trouble. And acting surprised will not be a good look. So, now is the time to bring people in for the entire supply chain of what you're doing to go through their tools and somebody that knows what they're looking at with these tools.
I like so my next question is about AI, which is a piece of technology that is now coming here. It's already here. It's been here for a while, since the 80s. But anyway, the point is, now we're all abuzz with it and we want to get ahead of this, but just the way the data landscape is looking now, we are not approaching this with enough sense. If you are a bigger company, like what you were saying, is like you're used to dealing with regulations. You have a legal team, so you have sort of some wherewithal to go through your things and figure out how, if you are going to level up your data management stuff with AI, you probably have some governance things in there already. But for everyone else, data governance is like, what is that? That's a fun word. It's, you have to really figure this out. Now, AI is coming out. We spoke a little bit about the privacy regulations in regards to AI earlier, but I just wanted you to kind of think about or just give us your thoughts on AI and how marketers can prepare to stay ahead of future regulations or just do the right thing anyway.
But doing the right thing is subjective, and it
I'm
needs
sorry.
to lie
You're
within
so right.
management. Right?
Disclaimer.
They need to know what is their mission for their company, and they need to have that as part of their brand marketing and things like that. So, I mean, whatever your core values are, I can't help you with that. I am not your moral compass. But what I can tell you is if you want to stay ahead of things in dealing with AI and marketing, I'm going to be a bit of a buzzkill here because I'm going to take a couple of industries off the table. Education, get off our kids' data. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get off our kids' data.
Done.
Employment, housing, lending, and insurance. These are life critical areas that we have right here. Also, because predictive analytics, when it comes to human behaviors, are not that good. I would recommend everybody read AI Snake Oil. It's a great book. Yeah, absolutely. It tells you what AI can do. It tells you what it can't do and how to tell the difference.
Yeah.
It's very approachable. It's an easy book to read. My kids are reading it now. So, I mean, it's an easy book to read. People can't tell me it's too complicated because, I do read some complicated shit and I publish some, mechanistic interpretability, and people are like, my head's exploding.
No,
I get it. Some of the research papers, like you don't get past the abstract. I get that. That's fine. But you should read this book so you can find out a little bit more about the difference between machine learning and the limitations and generative AI. Transformers are different. They work in different ways.
Yes.
So, and they have different challenges and different limitations. But back to the buzzkill, those 5 areas I say you need to you need to stay away from is something I've been saying for years to marketing people. Please do all the marketing you want to. I don't have civil rights concerns if you're selling shampoo or sneakers. However, I do if you're posting ads for jobs or apartments or lending products. Like, how do you choose who to show that ad to? I mean, that in and of itself is a problem. So not only that, we have rights in those areas. And I really do believe they're coming back. The Fair Credit Reporting Act was enacted in 1970, protect the private information in our consumer reports. Those were the only files that we had about us at that time. So if we wanted to get a loan or get a job, people would ask for our consent and then check the credit bureaus to see what data they had. Well, now nobody does that anymore. They just go and buy whatever data they want. Inferences upon inferences based on trash garbage from your likes, your swipes, your kinks on Pornhub, the contents, your shopping cart on Amazon. None of these things should have any bearing on whether you're qualified to get the job you applied for or get a house.
Well, and
so
I'm just thinking of is any of that useful for advertisers? Like that, all of this stuff. Like if I could get a full debrief on all of my audience, like their blood type, their religious affiliation, their shoe size.
Now you sound like a psycho side piece that won't leave you alone. If I could just follow you around everywhere and watch everything you do, you'll see how much you need me.
Right.
That's how consumers feel about advertisers right now. Like, so much about me, and still what you show me for ads are shit. Like, Why do I need to tell you even more about me? I bought those shoes 3 weeks ago. You're still showing me ads for those shoes. You should have known I already bought those shoes. So exactly, it's not good. It's not getting better, but those life critical areas will get you in trouble because we
Essential.
do have rights. The rights under the
Right.
Fair Credit Reporting Act include the right to know what data they have. Can you imagine? Oh, yeah. Can you imagine me going over to LiveRamp and being like, tell me all your data? Because you can, and they'll tell you. And it's this many pages of all the data they have about you. And yeah, exactly. So, what data you have, make corrections if it's wrong. So, if you're going to make a correction to some of the data, are you going to retrain that model now that you have new data? No, you're not. And so, you also have the right to opt out of mass marketing under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Oh, yeah, that's right. The opt out of that's right.
What is
Yeah.
that like?
No,
That
I told you it was going to be a buzzkill. The best part is private right of action if you don't afford us these rights in a reasonable amount of time.
yes.
So yes, it's a
Good point.
buzzkill.
Yeah, well, but I'm just saying, like, if we wanted to be free from mass marketing, get off all the apps, get off your computer, move to the forest, enjoy the relevant, personalized advertising of the world, the universe. No, it's amazing what you're saying. Is this is why Heidi is so cool, because she the thing she's advocating for is things you're going to want to advocate for down the road once it becomes a problem. You're like, wait, what happened to my data? Wait, where'd it go? Wait,
You need to build for where you're going, not where you are. I tell my clients this all the time. Let's have vision and see where we want to go instead of make knee-jerk reactions, because it's band-aids upon band-aids upon band-aids, and you look like a mummy. It's a mess. So let's build for where we're going and set this up so that it is sustainable, so that it is profitable, and so that it is trustworthy, because you can use that in your marketing, and people know BS. They definitely know BS. So if you say my privacy is important to you, and then you sold their data to 700 partners, they're not going to believe you.
Quote bomb.
You've got to do a little bit more work here to earn the trust of people that has been taken for granted for too long. And people have made a lot of money. Recently, they took up the filing fees for the data broker registration in California. And I saw a marketing bro complaining loudly that, oh, I work with small businesses and they won't be able to afford that. And that's exactly the point. If you cannot afford to do basic compliance work, you don't deserve to broker in our data. That's just the bottom line. You must be at least this smart to do this work. And if you're not, yeah, exactly. If you're not, you can go be a greeter at Walmart.
all right. I was just thinking. I was like, oh, it's not West. It's not the wild, wild West. It's Six Flags over your data. That's what we're doing. So get on the roller coaster, but make sure you get your harness fully locked. This is amazing. You've given us so much to think about. But I want you to kind of just give us that bumper sticker advice, like the one piece of advice that you would give to the marketers, advertisers out here about data privacy. What would that bumper sticker be?
Hug your technologist.
Yeah, well, speak more about that tender hug.
Right? Well, you're looking for the truth. So you need to find that Indiana Jones of truth that knows how to root through your supply chain to show you what's really happening, right? Someone that is working on your best interest to say, well, this is what they told you and what they sold you. Here is what's really happening. And then you're empowered with new information to make better decisions about who should be your vendors or who's included in your supply chain with your third parties, because third party risk is huge. So the way to get to the bottom of this is not your lawyer. It's not your privacy pro. It's not your product team lead. It's the technologists. It's the engineers. It's the ones that are doing the coding. They're the ones that know how the traffic flows because they're the ones in charge of doing it. And so if you don't have any of those in your organization, because they're expensive people to maintain full time,
Right. Yeah.
yes, you can bring a consulting company in to help you with this so that you can get down to what's called ground truth. And so once you have the ground truth of what's happening, you can make better choices, and the money will come just because you're not getting ripped off as much anymore. So yeah, exactly. If you have a good product or a good service, then the money will come as long as everybody stops screwing you every chance they get, because they know you don't know what getting screwed feels like in the ad tech ecosystem. And until you do know that, you're not even looking for this problem.
It's Gorgeous. I love that. And what it aligns with something of the inability for people to have hard conversations wherein which they disclose that they don't know something.
Yes.
Don't you like for me, I'm feeling like that might be the biggest barrier to overcome. And it's the smallest thing.
Yeah.
Like all
Well,
you
I
need
told
to
you, that's the biggest change that we saw with regulatory enforcement and with the plaintiffs bar.
Mm,
They got a hold of technologists.
mm,
How does this stuff work? And then they can, yeah, you don't have to tell people how to feel about what they find. They know how to feel about it, but you have to be able to find the people smart enough to get in it and find the truth for you. So,
mhm.
and that's how progress was made. Now, the industry, they already know how this stuff works, and they have technologists and they have been riding high on all of this, yeah, and thinking they were undercover and nobody knew what was going on. Yes, but we see you. Yes, we all see you now. And so if companies are worried about this type of treatments in their ad supplies or their campaigns, then do not look for the established vendors. Yeah, yeah, you know who they are.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, they're so terrible at identifying MFA that they're trying to be acquired right now. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and that's after they recently got a big influx of cash last year and brought in more technologists. But they didn't bring in the right kind. They brought in the make more problems technologists instead of the research based. Here is the issue technologist and how to solve for the problems.
Oh my
Right.
gosh.
So,
Yeah.
you need to do some digging. And I think social proof is something we're going to go back to. We understand people, we understand their points of view.
Mhm.
And so when you're dealing with the people, that's one thing, but also make sure one of those people is a technologist so they can look through to give you what the ground truth is and what you're doing.
Gosh, I love that. So good. But the main thing, yes, find that technologist. Hug your engineers, the data folks, but you have to know that you don't know, and you have to have a curiosity for getting to that ground truth. So, like the advice that Heidi's talking about, please follow her. Adhere to the things that she's talking about, because these, if they're not problems now, they will become an emergent problem. And it would be nice to act right before the lawyers show up. But thankfully, we have a lawyer here to tell us this. I just want people to connect with you. How can they learn more about you and your work and connect with you online, Heidi?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm just another suburban mom running my mouth on LinkedIn, man. It's probably no big deal, but people love it. I crossed 11,000 people yesterday and was like, I still don't know who all these people are. I meet people all the time, and they're like, "Hey, I see other people in my network," and I was like, "I don't know them."
Okay. Yeah.
Because I don't. A lot of people just follow me that I've never met. But if you want to talk, reach out. You can send a DM or something like that. If you want to talk and find out more about this, I also go and do talks for businesses. I do public speaking events, conferences, but I also do them in C-suites. So if
Nice.
you have some issues that you would just kind of like, a breath of fresh air or maybe a buzzkill, but you would just like some of that ground truth brought in so that you can have the information relayed to the rest of your team. That's something that I do as well. Privacy pros and lawyers that don't necessarily have the same technical skills or consumer protection background, they'll bring me in to say the same thing that they have been saying, but sometimes it's heard when it comes from another person.
Yeah.
So that's how we're making progress together, because this is all still relatively new and we're getting through it together. It's not picking sides so much unless you're a data broker. And even there, I know people at data brokers and they're doing what they can to do the right thing.
Right.
So I have hope for progress on this front, because it's not going to get any easier. Like the new administration, people thinking like it's business friendly, not your business.
Cheese or chocolate?
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Cheese or chocolate?
Chocolate.
Okay. The Code of Hammurabi or the Da Vinci Code?
Oh, Hammurabi.
I mean, come on. Legal torts or Apple torts?
Legal torts. Yeah.
Oh, she's in it. She's
Oh,
in
they're
it.
delicious. There's so many flavors.
Lawyers in Love by Jackson Browne or Lawyers, Guns, and Money by Warren Zevon?
I haven't read either of them. I
No.
just read research papers.
Oh, those are songs, Heidi.
Oh, see? See, I told you I'm not up to date on all the fun stuff that other people do outside of work because I'm reading brain science papers and
She's busy. I love
watching
it.
documentaries.
Yeah, come
All
on now.
right,
All right, a couple more. Appealing a ruling or appealing a banana?
A ruling, of course.
Why did I spent time on these questions, Heidi. And you're just coming out of the gate. Council's coming out strong. Finally. Well, this would be interesting. Matlock or Perry Mason?
Ooh, the new Matlock or the old Matlock? Because I heard there's a new Matlock now.
There's a new one, and there was a new Perry Mason. I say pick whichever one, new or old.
Thurgood Marshall.
You know what? That was the right answer. I can't believe she looked into it and found the right answer. Excellent job, Thurgood Marshall, for the win.
What Gets Measured is a NinjaCat podcast. Please rate and review the show wherever you find your podcasts. Share this episode on social and visit us on the web at ninjacat.io.